Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Never Go Against the Family. This is our podcast focused on family owned businesses in Iowa and surrounding states. Today, I have Heidi Vermeer-Quist online with me. And Heidi is so many things to us at the UNI Family Business Center. She is a peer group facilitator, she's an advisory board member, she's been a speaker, and just a great support on our team for family businesses and a big advocate. So, welcome, Heidi.
Thanks, Katie. It's really good to join you today. Very, very fun to be on your podcast.
Yeah, and you're actually our only speaker that's ever come twice on the podcast. So you have that distinct.
Well, I feel very honored to be a return guest. That is awesome.
Well, I really wanted to capture your story today because you're part of the Vermeer Corporation family. And I don't know if we've ever captured how your journey in the Vermeer business went and
Right.
as part of
Yep.
the family. Could we start by just like, when do you think you first became aware of what the Vermeer family business was?
So I don't know life without knowing that Vermeer was a business and that my father worked there and my grandfather started it. And eventually then my aunt came on board. My uncle was actually there for quite a long time too. So Vermeer is like part of the family really for us. Um it's not a reality that I even know what life is without it. So yeah, I just remember going into the company with my dad to his office and messing around in his office. And, you know, I didn't get into much trouble, but I was curious and I just have memories of what places used to look like in the 1970s. And back when we had some really interesting logos, we had a logo in the 60s and 70s that was the Diggin' Dutchman.
Oh,
And yeah, it's so different than our logo now. That's a really clean V for Vermeer, but it was like we're from Pella, which is Dutch community, and so it was a guy who looked like a construction worker, kind of. He had a hard hat on, and you can find it probably if you Google Diggin' Dutchman Vermeer, but he actually wore wooden shoes. So he looked Dutch,
wow.
Diggin' Dutchman. That
I'll
was
have to look that up.
that was the logo. Yeah, and it was like not an old one. It was like probably the newest one. I know what the one looks like before that even, and then yeah, and then they came up with a guy that had like a V in his bicep, like all the logos, all the history, went to all the like the anniversary parties, for the company. I remember the 40th. My dad and my aunt had a donkey race. Like that
Oh,
they both, I know they rode on donkeys and everybody was hooting and hollering. It was hilarious. And she fell off her donkey and my dad laughed at her. Like I remember all these, just ridiculous things. That would have been in like 1988, probably the 40th anniversary. So and now we're nearing 80 years. So
wow, that is
yeah,
so wild.
yeah.
And your dad was president and CEO for a while, is that right?
He came in as VP Finance in the mid 1970s. And then I don't remember exactly when he was elevated to CEO, but I think he was, VP or co-president or something like that. My uncle was actually president and my grandpa was CEO, and then they parted ways. Um, and then I think it was after that, so it would have been like later 80s maybe, that my dad was brought up to president and my grandpa was still CEO. And then eventually he sort of retired and my
Mhm.
my aunt was elevated. She was like VP of marketing, as I recall. She's just got awesome communication skills. And so eventually my dad and my Aunt Mary were co-CEOs, late 90s, early 2000s. And then my dad retired like with a retirement date in mind. We implemented that in his generation and second
And
generation.
there are air quotes around that retirement word for anybody
Yes.
listening.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so my grandfather, like a lot of the first generations, It was kind of unclear when he ever retired. But I mean, he did hand, I think, the day-to-day leadership to Bob and Mary pretty successfully. But he, as majority owner, you really felt his presence there. And then when my father went kind of down the line of succession, and we were getting a lot of professional help because I could go into lots of stories of what we learned did not go well in the first few decades of my life, and probably they even more before that, the second generation. But um, we had learned that the importance of talking about plans and about having some succession planning was really important. So my father did retire from CEO, and since his retirement at age 65, that's been actually kind of a rule for everybody, including senior leaders too, like
Uh-huh.
encouraging around that age of 65 to be having a successor that has been groomed, is ready to take over. Um, Sometimes I think you could still work in some kind of capacity for a while, but then kind of even with like board chairman kind of work and other kind of like advisory work in the company, it's encouraged and followed through generally to be done by the time you're 70.
Wow.
So yeah, so those age limits were kind of a big deal implemented. So I don't know why I went off on that topic, but that's an important one that I think a lot of people don't know, and they I think it actually really helps to have some agreed upon boundaries
Yeah,
to make it more clear and less personal.
I
Um,
bet. Yeah.
People are just trying to get rid of me. No, when you turn 65, you just move on,
Yeah.
like,
And it's also nice to be able to retire, right? I mean, I know not everybody's built to just relax, but, and some people want to work and work, but it's also a
Mhm.
privilege to have that time and space. And
It really is. And there are new things you can really focus on as well. My mom always says it's not really retirement, it's refirement. You
oh,
find, I know she's really creative with words. And so you find what is going to be life-giving. Because, I mean, how long should any of us be kind of in the same position? Um, there sort of needs to always be a beginning, middle, and an end.
yeah.
And for myself, growing up in the business, I'm kind of right in the middle, right? I'm in my 50s, and so my relationship to the business is in the middle. But I think your roles can shift depending on where you're going to best contribute. And
Yeah.
so I did work for the business.
Okay, that was going to
Um,
be my next
yep,
question.
yep, I sure did. I worked for the business during the summers when I was in college.
Okay. What'd you do?
And I already knew that I was really drawn to something around people. So we have kind of four um, anchors in terms of our 4P philosophy, which is biblical principles, very much focused as a family on those, and as a business on like living out the values of treating others as you'd want to be treated, and doing the next right thing. So principles was a big passion for me, and then the people, which are kind of the first two anchors of our 4P philosophy, then product, which of course we build only the best.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
only the best. Really, really good stuff. And we're always in search of a better way. That's what our products are designed to be doing constantly, is how to improve that world of work that people are producing, whether it's, row crop or construction or mining, and all of that has just really developed over the last going on 80 years in terms of all the different types of machines that we develop. So we're an engineering company. Um, that was not my jam, engineering. So product, I think our products are amazing. My favorite one is still the large round hay baler because I love seeing bales out in the field.
Great.
Yep. And I have lots of memories of, well, I'm a horse person, and we put big bales of hay out in the pasture, and the horses eat those. Um, so so product was the third P, and then the last was profit. And I appreciate profit for sure. And but I'm not a finance person. I don't get excited about like in engaging in investments, nor for sure not taxes. Um, you know, I love our principle though with regard to profit is that we're to be stewards of profit and we're aiming for growth, we're aiming for giving back to the community, we're aiming for absolutely paying our team members well. Um, but when it comes to profitability, that not being what we worship, so to speak. So both those other two P's were just really not my big passion. It was the principles and the people. And so I went super long explanation to your question. Do you want to guess which department I went into?
People.
Which
Hmm.
would be
Uh,
HR.
HR.
Yep,
Wonderful.
yep, HR, human resources. So I went into HR and I kept finding myself feeling like this is really awkward. And so generally, long story short with my experience with HR and observing how can a family member who's an owner really work effectively in HR? It was hard. I mean, there was plenty of work to be done, but stuff that I didn't wasn't interested in, but I did it. I helped fill out their like EEOC
I
stuff
don't
that
even know what that is.
so Equal Employment Act.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. So I did all this data analysis for them one summer.
Kind of
Um,
the behind the desk stuff, not
yeah,
working
real
on
behind
employee
the desk
relations.
stuff. I
Mhm.
learned a ton about benefits, which was not fun to me either, about insurance coverage, options, about payroll, learned all about payroll, and I just told you about how much I love finance, which is
Yeah.
not. I wanted to do the touchy-feely stuff, which is relationship. So that would include hiring, that would include training, that would include firing. That would include disciplinary. That would include a lot of things that for me, as again, a family member and an owner, would, I mean, the other thing that's I'd say the big piece that caught me with I can't do it, which was probably a really sad moment, was I also would have to be the safe place that people can come to complain.
Got it. Which should be really awkward, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
Who's gonna, somebody felt disrespected from maybe it's one of my relatives. Are they going to come talk to me about that? Somebody felt like Vermeer did them wrong somehow, but they know I'm an owner. Are they going to really, it just felt really awkward and it was actually super sad. I remember vividly at a family meeting when we were sharing because at every family meeting, don't all families get together and then talk about what's your 5-year career plan? We
Huh.
did that. We did that year
Who
after year
doesn't?
for many, many years. Um, Again, because I think we were trying to be intentional with succession planning. So it was a really good thing that we did it. Um, but I remember I was about 25, 26, and we were doing the around the room, and I was already at that point getting my doctorate in clinical psychology, thinking, oh, but I could still, maybe that we could find a space for me in HR. Um, but even when I explored that with my own professors and my mentors, it just kept kind of bubbling up that in terms of a proper role in HR, it didn't really make a lot of sense. So I remember, telling the family, I anticipated are some of the family going to be disappointed in me? Are they going to be mad? Um, if they were, they covered it up really well. And they were accepting and seemed to appreciate the the reason for why. So I said I'm probably not going to work in the day-to-day of the family business. So we'll zoom ahead. I worked as a clinical psychologist for 10 years, started our own family, my husband and I. My husband, by the way, was the first married in that signed a prenup. So that's
Oh,
something. Like
wow.
we did a lot of firsts.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
want to just pause to say that
that's a big part of my story too. Yeah.
I mean, you and like with kind of taking yourself out of the running there, even though
Yep.
wanting to be part of the family business and the
Yep.
prenup. Like that's like I feel like your family was fortunate that you had that. I mean, I don't know if it's like the moral compass of it all or just the knowledge or the kind of decision making behind
Hmm.
those things that it's really smart. It is sad that you weren't able to work in the family business when you wanted to, and but
Right.
just
I
with your
couldn't
skills
really
and your
find a
role, yeah.
spot. Yeah, I couldn't really find the spot that fit. Um, but then it's interesting, and this is where I'd encourage a lot of people in family business to like never say never, because when then we hit some of those big transitions that we were talking about earlier, like, when my grandfather did actually pass away and estate plans were moving and ownership got redistributed in some ways, and some of the family that wasn't engaged that had ownership that started to come back engaged again, or are they not going to be engaged? And then my father is in the midst of potentially retiring, and as he retires, my aunt is going to be sole CEO. There's just all this stuff going on like around 2008, 9-ish, and went to a family business conference. It was through FBN, Family Business Network USA, but like Loyola, which has a Family Business Center. I think you guys have learned a lot from some of them over the years.
Yeah, they're
Um,
good friends of ours. Yeah.
yeah, there were some, I don't know as many there now, but they were part of who we really relied on because we didn't have anything in Iowa really at the time. So that's why we're so proud UNI has a Family Business Center, and you guys do a great job. But
Well,
and that was unsolicited. I'm saying that freely, not getting paid.
thank you,
Um,
Heidi.
yeah, it's totally true. Love you guys. So, but all that was happening, and suddenly, like my psychologist head started exploding, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I think I have a role. I think I see a calling here." And
Ah,
so at that point, then I volunteered to take over what we had currently in place. We had been developing a family council with our branch of the family. Um, but those who were in leadership were also very much in the day-to-day of the business of the business. Like my aunt was the chair of our family council, so Mary was. So I got to take over that from her, and then little by little we started to develop what we now call our family office. And so I served as Gary Vermeer Family Council, which was the only family council. And then we developed eventually, and it's a long story, but we eventually developed then our ownership council, which is a combination then of the whole ownership group,
okay.
representatives that cover all shareholders.
How many
And
shareholders does Vermeer have?
I think we're in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that would
Yep.
be your aunts and uncles, your cousins, your nieces
Yep.
and nephews, and all of their
Yep.
people.
And some of our nieces and nephews will probably start to have babies at some
Wow.
point, you
So
know?
that's into the fifth generation
Yep.
then.
Yep. Yep. We're not quite there yet. We're not quite to a fifth gen, but we are way, way well into fourth. And they range from 20, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 29 to 0.
Wow. At what point did you get ownership the day you were born? What when did your ownership in the business come in? I know
That's
some
a
families do
super
it
great
differently.
question. I don't remember, of course, because I would have been a baby.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, I know that my parents had been gifted ownership in the 70s. I don't know when they started gifting it to us, but it was early. I mean, I remember learning that they were gifting me ownership when I was in elementary school,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't know what that meant. And
Right.
then when I was in graduate school, we had a really, really pretty, no, 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 no. When I turned 18, my grandfather actually gave me like a certificate of ownership because he gifted. And it was kind of like this mafia moment, family mafia moment. Um,
Never go against the family.
Never go against the family guys, where it was like that. And he said, "Here, this is a privilege. Don't ever sell it." Like
Oh my.
it was like that.
Yeah.
And like you should be so thankful right now. Like
Oh my.
feeling like it's a lot of responsibility that I'm not capable of,
Let me put this in a safe deposit box and then go cry.
so scared. Let me bury it in the ground because I'm so scared. No, and I'm sure he didn't mean to come across that way, but that's how, when you're little and he's big, and basically that's how you remember how he said it.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, he was a great like role model for us in terms of stewardship. He really, really was.
And that shows to you guys today, like how you do some of these
Yeah.
family camps and stuff.
Yep.
And I feel like we could do a whole podcast about that.
Maybe
But
we
and how
should.
you,
I could be your third time
oh
guest.
my gosh,
Let's
perfect.
do it on
Second,
family camps
third.
next time.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect.
Yep. Sounds good.
Is there are there rules for gifting ownership now? Do
Yeah,
they yeah.
absolutely. So then we during the kind of the middle time that I was the ownership council chair. So I actually worked part-time for the family business, never full-time. Although I would joke that I worked three-fourths time for Pine Rest as a psychologist, sometimes with people who are suicidal or homicidal, and a fourth of the week I spent with Vermeer. And my time at Vermeer was 3 to 4 times more stressful to me than my three-fourths time at Pine Rest
Oh my.
because there was just always just a lot more emotion, I think, that I felt in all of the kind of structures we were trying to put together. And, it was just challenging to try to make changes in the system that had been, um, that had an amazing foundation, but it had also been through a lot of change. And so there were a lot of emotions and a lot of reactions going on. But we got through it. Praise the Lord. And I served in that capacity until 2016. And then I passed on the leadership role to my cousin Mindy, who did an awesome job while also working in the business. So, I mean, I think that was a big balance for her. She's now over all manufacturing, VP of production at Vermeer, which is amazing. And my cousin Jason is CEO and has been. He succeeded his own mom in 2014 or 15, something like that. So, but then she's handed it over to a really, really great ownership council chair that we have currently, who's from that other family branch that
Oh,
had not been engaged for about 30 years. So that was my grandfather's younger brother. This would have been the third generation. His name is Grant Vermeer, and he's been a very, very good ownership council chair. So I yeah, was able to work myself out of the job and then back into my other jobs. So,
your
and
other
I
day jobs.
yeah, my other day jobs. And on this side, I do in fact, I'm probably doing more of it now, and that might be a longer term focus for me is working with other families in business, which is why I'm connected with UNI Family Business Center and help facilitate the peer groups. It's just a good thing to be fostering that community support, education, mutual learning, because we're all learning and growing in different ways. And so it's good to not feel like you're out on an island doing it on your own.
Yeah, and it's a blessing to find someone with as niche of talents and interests and history as you, Heidi, to be a clinical psychologist and be from a family business. Supporting other family businesses is just wonderful. Um,
Oh, you're very, very kind. I joke with my family because I have a cousin who's in again, the other branch, which we're all one, but
mhm.
we had that 30-year division, and that you if those who are listening, yes, you probably guessed it, the older brother and the younger brother basically had a falling out. And so that's why they weren't engaged the same way that I was. But their family produced a psychologist too.
Oh.
So it's yeah. So I joke with our family. I said we were so messed up that, we had to produce two psychologists in my generation.
And you can trauma bond.
Oh, totally. We do. Yeah. Matthew and I, we get along great.
Oh, that's excellent.
whenever we get together. Yeah, but it is all joking aside because we have a wonderful family and we're all cracked pots, like we know that. And when we get together, thankfully, I think we're having more fun than we probably and there's maybe more and more a level of trust and comfort that is growing. It's never going to be perfect. I mean, we still have, difficult things that we're working through, like every other family, like every other business.
I have one more question for you, and it is really like an advice question. Just thinking about how many family businesses don't make it past the second to third generation.
Hmm.
Partially because there's no succession plan, but in big part because there's not communication about those cousins, like how many people are going to be in the business? Is there a role for you in the business? Um, I know you could probably have a few pieces of advice, but could you whittle it down to like one or two pieces of advice you would give to those um, third generation members who might be going through something that your family went through now?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it is really important to have a lot of conversation. And sometimes it's formalized, meetings. We would have, I think for a long time we just had annual meetings with the older generation and the cousins when we were like teenagers into our early 20s. And then as we grew even bigger with the family camps, we have that annual meeting, right? I mean, so we already have it. Now it's super structured. And like my kids who range from 20 almost 22 to 14, they're already having like so many conversations and they're having earlier opportunities into exposure with Vermeer. I'm like, I tagged along with my dad, but didn't have a whole lot of formal work experience there until I was in college because they just didn't hire anybody younger than 18 at Vermeer. It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But we've made ways that they can do some like job exposure for like from the 14 to 18-year olds. So I think that kind of thing where you're just giving them more opportunities, but also articulating to them, you know, without trying to totally scare them off, that we do you're going to be held to a higher standard than the average, Joe or Jane who applies and is competent and they can just do a good job and they can keep, like, you're gonna have to have all that. And um there will be more that you're also having to carry as ambassador of the business and of the family and all of that. So but also trying to teach them some healthy boundaries that they don't have to carry the future or the weight of the business on their shoulders. None of us should. Like we really need to just live one day at a time, doing our part, and trusting, that's where our faith comes in big time, is trusting that um we're really being cared for, all of us, all the time. Even if two tornadoes hit our company, which actually happened in
Yeah.
20, and that was actually, like, looking back at it probably was one of, I don't know if Jason would actually agree with me or not, but I can say it because it's from my perspective. It might have been one of the best things that happened to us because nobody was killed or even seriously injured, which is ridiculously amazing. Um, it was a miracle, but also what that did to the team, what that is Vermeer now, is it seemed to really unify the culture, and we were kind of siloing into like some different departments that weren't playing as well together, for
Hmm.
lack of a better way of saying it. So
Wow.
it's just interesting how sometimes the worst crises can be so important in growing up and becoming even better and healthier in some ways. So, which is a lesson for all of us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So,
I can see the Vermeer Strong
yeah, yeah,
signs in my head right
yeah,
now. So yeah.
yeah. We're pretty unified, in search of a better way, and Vermeer Strong. We're in this together. Um, the other thing that we're doing with our next gens, because we have so many of them too, is that we're trying to have like some ways to make sure that we're not losing anybody and we're having some ongoing talks with them. So for example, my daughter Zoe, she's kind of already used to, she's going to meet with Darla like once a year. Darla is our is one of our family administrators that has she was with me the whole time that we developed the family office too. So she's very relational. So she calls it like a personal growth path with the PGP. And so actually everybody in the family is encouraged to be working on their own professional growth path and communicating it so that we are continuing to get to know each other at our different stages. Yeah. And so for me, I mean, I work on my professional growth path too, acknowledging that in 5 years, where am I going to be? In 10 years, where am I going to be? And I think that's really important, that first and foremost, the human has to know what are the possibilities, because then they can articulate that. It's when the tragedy or the change happens that if people are just like deer in the headlights when it happens, then that's not what you want, right?
Yeah.
And where everybody just starts making decisions out of sheer emotion, which is not using the smartest part of your brain.
Mhm.
So,
And I like that you're utilizing Darla's role as a non-family member
yeah,
to to really be able to coach
right,
family.
right. Because similar to it, like me working at Vermeer, like they can't all meet with Aunt Heidi.
Mhm.
That's not, I mean, they will, because I will talk to them. That's what
Okay,
I'll do.
my
What are you
boss.
thinking? What do you really enjoy? I just shared a job link with a nephew today. So like I'm still totally
Yeah.
encouraging, not meddling. I'm
But
encouraging.
that's also
Yeah, that's
family.
family.
Yeah.
That's family, right? Exactly. But you're exactly right. That's the heart of it is let's have some like safe, more neutral people and they're in the family office, so their focus as staff in our family office is to really be supporting the family,
Yeah.
right? So and she does a great job of that. And we got our whole family office. Yeah, that's who they are. But it's all a journey. It sure is. It really is. I don't think we don't have to do it all right, but if we can hopefully help inspire and encourage other family businesses, we do want to be able to do that. So,
You certainly do. And just being able to have the conversations and the experience with a company of your size helps provide a blueprint for other family businesses to
oh
uh,
yeah. Yeah, and
not copy and paste, but
no, not
implement
not at
things
all.
that,
And I have so many like smaller family businesses that will be like, "Well, but we're not like you guys." And I'm like, but you are." We started as my grandfather and his wife,
Mhm.
and then his brother came on board. And then, we so no, you are.
Yeah, it's
Are you
very
supposed to cut and paste what we do? Of course not, because like we wrote that document when we were 60 years old. But like you need to like as you're 20 years old, or I mean, some companies too, they may be older than we are, 100 years old, but they've gone through pruning of ownership and they almost feel more like a first generation again.
yeah.
It doesn't matter. What we need to keep doing is, I think, being open to what would work as we go through inevitable change. And it's inevitable. It's going to change as much as we think it's great right now. Wonderful. Be thankful if it's great, but it's going to change. And no, if it's really awful right now, if it's the worst, again, you could be thankful because it's going to change.
Yeah.
Like,
That's good
you know,
perspective. Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah. And just being able
That's
to be
true.
open to that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Pat Lencioni. If
Yeah.
anybody ever reads any Pat Lencioni, but in his ideal team player, I love the hungry, humble, and smart is kind of the ideal team player. But most important of the three is humble, knowing humbly like anything can happen. Um, you know, and being willing to be flexible. I don't have to necessarily get my way, but I do get to contribute. I get to be part of it. so
Yeah.
yep.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love it. And I
Yeah.
feel like if I don't end here, we could talk all
Forever.
weekend.
Yep.
Um, so I'm gonna cut us off, but thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. And
Welcome.
sharing
Thank
your
you.
story. I
You bet.
appreciate
You
it.
did a great job, Katie.
Thank you, and we'll
Thank
see you next
you.
time. Thanks for listening to this episode of Never Go Against the Family, a podcast produced by the University of Northern Iowa Family Business Center. You can find more information about the center, membership, and upcoming events at unifamilybusinesscenter.com. As Vito Corleone advises, never go against the family.